What you are about to hear could be the exact biological intervention that prevents you from spending the rest of your life strictly dependent on increasing doses of blood pressure medication. If you are currently struggling with hypertension, the standard generalized exercise advice you have been given is likely flawed and chemically insufficient. Millions of seniors are told by well-meaning physicians to simply start jogging or engage in intense cardiovascular work. When these individuals measure their blood pressure immediately after a run, the numbers are terrifyingly high, and they enter a state of clinical panic. This represents a fundamental misunderstanding of human cardiovascular physiology. When you engage in intense, continuous cardio, your blood pressure must naturally spike to force oxygenated blood into working muscle tissue. This is a temporary biological stress response, not a sign of systemic failure. However, if your goal is to permanently lower your resting blood pressure, basic jogging is not the most efficient biological tool. You must engage in highly specific physical protocols that directly manipulate and improve arterial compliance. Arterial compliance is the clinical term for the elastic capacity of your blood vessels. As you age, and as systemic inflammation attacks your body, your arteries become stiff, rigid, and heavily calcified. They transform from flexible biological tubes into rigid pipes, forcing your heart to violently pump blood against immense resistance. This constant mechanical strain is what eventually leads to heart failure and stroke. Today, we are breaking down 3 highly specific clinical exercises proven by peer-reviewed literature to actively reverse arterial stiffness at the cellular level. Before we analyze these protocols, subscribe to the Medmetrics for objective, evidence-based health data designed to protect your biology. Exercise number 1 is Isometric Hand Grip Training. This specific protocol can reduce your systolic blood pressure by up to 15 points, directly rivaling the efficacy of standard pharmaceutical interventions like amlodipine or lisinopril. When you squeeze a hand grip device at a moderate 30 to 40% of your maximum strength, you create intense mechanical resistance in your forearm muscles. This sustained physical contraction temporarily compresses the local blood vessels, cutting off the oxygen supply to the tissue. This creates a state of localized hypoxia. In response to this sudden oxygen restriction, your body's survival mechanisms trigger a massive release of chemical vasodilators, most notably nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a powerful biological compound that forcefully commands the smooth muscle tissue lining your blood vessels to relax and expand instantly. By repeating this process of restriction and release, your arterial walls physically adapt, becoming highly flexible and structurally younger. The clinical protocol requires squeezing the grip for 2 uninterrupted minutes, resting for 2 minutes, and repeating this cycle 4 times per session. You must perform this 3 days per week. It is clinically imperative that you do not hold your breath during the 2-minute contraction, as this triggers the Valsalva maneuver and artificially spikes your pressure. Exercise number 2 is diaphragmatic breathing. You must not dismiss this as a simple relaxation technique. It is a direct, mechanical manipulation of your autonomic nervous system. Most adults take shallow, rapid breaths entirely from their upper chest. This thoracic breathing traps the body in a chronic state of low-grade sympathetic arousal, also known as the fight or flight response. When you are locked in this state, your adrenal glands constantly drip stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline directly into your bloodstream, keeping your blood vessels violently constricted all day long. When you execute deep, diaphragmatic breathing by physically expanding your stomach instead of your chest, you manually stimulate the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the biological superhighway that instantly activates your parasympathetic nervous system, commonly known as the rest and digest state. Activating this nerve chemically overrides your stress hormones. It forcefully commands your heart rate to drop and your vascular walls to relax by triggering your baroreceptor reflex. The exact clinical protocol requires inhaling deeply through the nose for 4 seconds, holding that air for 2 seconds, and exhaling very slowly through the mouth for 6 seconds. This extended, prolonged exhale is the exact biological trigger that fires the vagus nerve. You must execute this protocol for 10 to 15 minutes daily to structurally alter your baseline neurological stress response. Exercise number 3 is strict interval walking. Continuous leisurely walking at a flat pace does very little to alter stiffened, aged arteries. Interval walking, however, forces profound cardiovascular adaptation through a mechanism called endothelial shear stress. The protocol is highly structured. You must warm up for 5 minutes, then alternate between 2 minutes of brisk, heavy walking at 70% effort, followed immediately by 2 minutes of moderate recovery walking. You repeat this precise cycle for 25 minutes. When you push into the brisk 2-minute interval, the sudden surge of heavy blood flow physically scrubs the inner lining of your blood vessels, known as the endothelium. This mechanical friction forces the endothelial cells to shed damaged tissue and dramatically increase their production of protective vascular chemicals. A landmark study published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine revealed that interval walking lowered systolic pressure by an average of 12 points, completely doubling the cardiovascular benefit of a standard continuous walk. These 3 physical protocols are not immediate replacements for your prescribed medication. They are active, powerful biological tools designed to work synergistically alongside your medical treatment. Cellular adaptation takes time. You must commit to this protocol for a minimum of 8 to 12 weeks before the structural changes in your arteries become permanent. Over time, as your arterial compliance drastically improves and your resting pressure plummets, you and your physician may find that your body requires significantly less chemical intervention. Take command of your vascular health today. Consistency is your only metric for success. Subscribe to the Medmetrics for more clinical truth, and never ignore what your biology is telling you.